Welcome to Novel Love Hearing. We bring you hundreds of novel audiobooks covering every genre and every kind of story you can imagine. Action? We've got it. Adventure? Absolutely. Horror? Of course. Whether it's the legendary Uchiha Massacre or outrageous tales like stealing Naruto's and Sasuke's women, you'll find it here. From epic series like One Piece, Bleach, Fairy Tail, and Hunter x Hunter, to countless other adventures, our library has it all. Love novels but don't have time to read? No worries, just plug in your earbuds, sit back, and let the story take over. Good listening, and happy hearing. After that, he smiled faintly. Glam Gasland. Though it doesn't appear in the official manga or anime, I happened to see a video once. This city apparently was the site of an encounter between Hisoka and some circus troupe. At the time, Hisoka was in dire straits, like he'd been attacked, and it was the circus's ringmaster who saved him. That short side story animation was produced by some fan and supposedly got approval from Togashi. So spoke the team's non-user named Dylan, revealing some intel that indeed might be useful. Especially since even Xiongnan didn't know about it. Hearing this, the others were a bit startled. Anything else? Xiongnan nodded. That info about Hisoka is likely unrelated to their mission. Just a tidbit. This city is extremely prosperous economically. Social celebrities and elites here are far more numerous than in other cities on the European continent. Because countless world-famous tycoons, collectors, and top figures from all walks of life come here to enjoy the so-called artistic life. So auctions occur here even more frequently than in Knyo. The scale might not be as grand or illustrious as the Knyo auction from the storyline, though. The female player chimed in, saying she's a local of the European continent and very familiar with this city. So, what do you think our mission might be? Xiongnan asked with a smile. The Mafia? Someone guessed. Could be some super wealthy individual. Another seconded. After all, European's a major hotbed of Mafia activity. Countless underworld families and groups run rampant there. Pick any city, and you're bound to find numerous Mafia syndicates. In the previous mission, Xiongnan and his group headed to Kaken, and the mission ended up involving the Chimera Ants. But Glam Gasland doesn't appear in the original story. Hence even Xiongnan, for the moment, wasn't too sure. All he could think of was also the Mafia. Could it be the Ten Dons? He thought to himself, connecting it to a potential story unlock. Indeed, only the Ten Dons might fit. Suddenly, the system prompt arrived. Ding. The 5th round of the extinction game has officially begun. Please be on alert, player squad, since it was addressed to the entire team, but specifically for Xiongnan it was the 5th round. While for the others, it was only the 4th. They have the same mission content, but Xiongnan role as captain means the system standards for him will be broader and more demanding. That is, 2 different tiers working on the same assignment. You've been hired by an unknown individual. Please head to the Mazda warehouse to meet your employer. The mission details will be issued personally by the employer. Xiongnan raised his brow. For the first time, they get a mission start with the content itself still unknown. Let's go. Xiongnan said, ignoring his companion's worried expressions. He set down his drink and turned to leave. The rest of the team promptly followed. They took 2 cabs straight to the Mazda warehouse in Glam Gasland. On the way, through chatting with the drivers, they learned that the warehouse is in an industrial zone, far from downtown, basically on the outskirts. And apparently abandoned long ago. Upon arrival, sure enough they saw only overgrown weeds and broken-down factory buildings, with no sign of people. Ding. Player, your protective concealment has temporarily been lifted. Please be cautious. Xiongnan heard this in his ear. He glanced at the others, their faces were normal, meaning the message was only for him. Weird. Where's the employer? The system said we'll meet here. What kind of secretive job is this, in such a godforsaken place? Dylan couldn't help grumbling. Let's wait. Xiongnan, sensing something, calmly eyed the disused factory zone. He lifted the concealment? That means I can fully interact with story characters, but also that I can be attacked by them. My protection's gone. He sank into thought. 1 hour passed. 2 hours. 3 hours. They still didn't see any so-called employer, as if the person had stood them up. Xiongnan stayed quiet, leaning on a tree trunk with his eyes closed. Eventually, after the sky was starting to darken and his 4 teammates were losing patience, someone showed up at last. He emerged from an abandoned factory building. Apologies. Made you wait a while. We had a bit of an emergency on our side, he. An effusively friendly person, waving at them with a bright smile, speaking in a tone of sincere apology, rubbing the back of his head. He had a boyish face, a high-spirited and kind look, light brown hair, crimson attire, and emerald green eyes. The instant Xiang Nan laid eyes on him, a shock rippled across his features. Immediately, he went on alert. It was Schulnrich, a member of the Phantom Troop. A strategist role in the Spider. This completely exceeded Xiang Nan's expectations. Had the system artificially raised the stakes, making this more difficult? Furthermore, now that Xiang Nan's protective concealment was gone, this was dangerous. He's a story character. I can't see him. Huh? Who is it? Why a story character? If he's the employer, then how are we supposed to communicate? His teammates all seemed flustered. But Xiang Nan took a step forward and advanced toward Schulnrich. Chapter 90, Spider. So you're the head of this squad? Hello, just call me Schulnrich, I'm the one who hired you all. On the surface, Xiang Nan didn't betray any unusual reaction. He even stepped forward to initiate a handshake. Schulnrich saw this, shook his hand, and introduced himself. I'm called 17. Said Xiang Nan. What's our mission? Xiang Nan asked directly. No rush. Come with me. Schulnrich gave off a rather friendly vibe, a genial young man. He smiled and waved them along, indicating they should follow him. However, Xiang Nan keenly noticed that while Schulnrich addressed him, his gaze had inadvertently swept over the other 4 squad members behind Xiang Nan. Captain. Can you actually see this story character? Huh, who is he? The few behind Xiang Nan hurried after them, speaking quietly in puzzlement. I don't recognize him either, probably just some minor character. Maybe he only showed up a couple of times in the original story. I don't recall the name. Xiang Nan responded offhandedly. Oh. They didn't suspect him. Xiang Nan followed Schulnrich, winding through the abandoned industrial zone, almost like playing hide-and-seek, and eventually arriving at a warehouse. When they all entered, bang! Someone slammed the warehouse doors shut. All at once, the inside became pitch black. Xiang Nan stood in place, hands in his coat pockets, face unreadable. After a few seconds, in the darkness, a few flickers of firelight popped up, illuminating the space faintly. Dim yellowish light began spreading across the warehouse interior, barely letting him see his surroundings. 4 people. Standing out in front was Schulnrich, holding an oil lamp. Not far away, leaning against a cold wall with her arms crossed over her chest and head cocked lazily, was a pink-haired woman. Maki. Xiang Nan's eyes flickered. Behind him, the one who had shut the warehouse door was Franklin. And next to a small van stood a bespectacled girl wearing a somewhat blank expression. Shizuku. Members number 3, number 6, number 7, number 8 of the Phantom Troop. 4 members of the Spider. Only these 4? Xiang Nan felt his heart sink, immediately stretching his senses as far as they would go to check for any other spiders hidden inside. Before coming in, Xiang Nan had already sensed multiple Nan signatures, likely meaning danger. But he had no choice, this was the mission, so he had to step forward no matter the risk. He couldn't abandon it. What does this mean? Xiang Nan's gaze was coldly fixed on Schulnrich. Don't mind it. Schulnrich still looked as if exuding a big brother vibe. Speaking lightly, he set down the oil lamp. I wanted to confirm a few things before giving you all the job. He sounded polite, but Xiang Nan, as a player, knew too well how the troop's members did things. No exaggeration. If his answers didn't satisfy Schulnrich, these 4 spiders would kill him in a heartbeat. The others in his squad still had their newbie protection. But as captain, Xiang Nan had no such safeguards. Xiang Nan quietly waited for Schulnrich to continue. You guys are all from that nameless town group, right? Schulnrich smiled. Yes. To a story character, noticing that newbie protection phenomenon is normal. They just don't understand the mechanism behind it, nor can the players reveal anything about the system. From Schulnrich's perspective, he can only interpret it as some strange phenomenon tied to an unknown power. Sigh. Didn't expect the security squad I'd hire would turn out to be entirely from nameless town. Feels a bit fishy, you know. Schulnrich rested his hands on his hips, sounding ambiguous. I only posted a job listing online, just a random security assignment. A firm named Spirit Shield responded. I looked into them, and sure enough, they seem clean. But you 5 apparently just joined them. So I can't help suspecting you might have an ulterior motive. Care to explain? It's all too big a coincidence. He stared at Xiang Nan. He's probing. Xiang Nan thought to himself, acknowledging Schulnrich's cunning. This was not a man who could be easily misled. Want me to tell the truth? Xiang Nan asked, smiling. Yes. Schulnrich beamed an especially wide grin. The other troop members were also watching him. We just got handed the job, that's all. As for why it fell to us, I have no idea. Maybe you should ask that agency or just pick somebody else. As for your deeper reasons, I'm sorry, but I don't know anything. Xiang Nan offered a wry, Open gesture. Is that so? Schlenrich scratched his chin. Next second, he suddenly fixed his gaze on Xiangnan and spoke. You must already know who we are, right? The moment you walked in, your body language changed. Like you were bracing yourself for a fight, yeah? Guess those rumors about your group were spot on. You guys in Nameless Town apparently have unusual intel sources, have you? He laughed. The famous Phantom Troop. You guys have done plenty. If you want to remain hidden, you should keep a lower profile. Xiangnan shrugged. No point in dragging things out with him, Maki suddenly remarked, stepping away from the wall. Her tone was cold and her eyes laced with killing intent as she walked toward Xiangnan. If they're unreliable, just kill them. They've discovered our location, anyway. Maki lifted her hands, slender glowing threads of nin swirling around her fingertips. But we can't kill them all, except maybe him, Schlenrich said, glancing at Xiangnan. If we do, we won't have time to find replacements. We're in a hurry now. He, however, did nothing to stop Maki, basically implying his tacit consent. Then interrogate him. Confirm if they're safe. Maki's figure vanished in a blur. At the exact same moment, Xiangnan activated his nin ability. Both his hands were suddenly clad in white gloves. A flicker of silver thread swayed midair. Maki, appearing behind Xiangnan, tried binding his limbs with her threads. She never anticipated the man would detect her sneak attack so cleanly. He evaded her, and while spinning, slashed an arm chop at her face. Maki deftly dodged, realizing that this trenchcoat guy indeed had some skill. She narrowed her eyes. But although Xiangnan had avoided Maki's initial blow, he failed to notice that at the instant his feet touched down, something yanked at his leg, causing him to stumble. Looking down, he saw one of Maki's nin threads had pierced the toe of his shoe. Hidden. She had concealed some threads, extremely thin and near invisible, plus Maki's skillful Hatsu operation. Xiangnan couldn't precisely track all the threads or their trajectories. Her fighting style, along with her abilities' synergy, was excellent. Certainly a top-tier technique. He toppled. His hand instinctively braced on the ground for balance. At once, an entire mesh of barely visible threads lashed out, snagging around his torso. The speed of Maki's move, her reaction timing. Alarmingly accurate. Everything was swift and lethal. Now, with Maki's approach, she began to tug her threads. They constricted Xiangnan like a captured animal. But at the moment she drew close, Xiangnan's elbow jerked back, ramming her right in the chest. She gasped sharply, face reddening. Behave. Struggle again, and I'll cut you to pieces. Maki threatened icily. The threads wound around Xiangnan were both supremely tough and razor sharp. As they tightened, even parts of his trenchcoat were slicing open. However, while Maki was binding him for that split second, Xiangnan flicked several surgical blades, tangling them with her threads and twisting to keep some space so they wouldn't slice too far into him. Now if Maki wanted to fully restrain him, she'd have to exert more effort. Even under her threat, Xiangnan remained calm. He merely sneered strangely, examinations done. Diagnosis, traumatic pneumothrax. When he said that, Maki, standing behind him, suddenly blanched. Her pupils contracted. Her fingers, which had been hooking the threads taut, began trembling involuntarily. Not bad, Spider. Your strength is indeed frightening. But right now, you're my patient. Sure you want to keep pushing? Because before you kill me, I guarantee you will die first. As Xiangnan spoke, Maki's face already started turning ashen. She looked to be in dire condition. Whoosh! Seeing Maki's abnormal reaction, the other two troop members instantly lunged forward. Franklin aimed his weapon-like fingers at Xiangnan's face. Shizuku also raised her vacuum girl, seemingly about to smash Xiangnan's head. Xiangnan showed no fear. His malicious smile only grew more pronounced. You want to strike? I'm the only one who can save her. It's not a big deal for me to die here. Having a spider go down with me would be an honor. Hearing that, Schlenrich and the other two troop members all changed color. Chapter 91, Mission Received. Before Maki and Xiangnan exchanged blows, it had only been a matter of a few breaths. The speed was astonishing. But from start to finish, the other three troop members had already recognized how dangerous this man from Nameless Town was. Especially his nin ability. First, in terms of pure technique, perhaps he wasn't as seasoned as Maki. Since she'd managed to hide her threads from his perception and catch him off guard. Even so, whether it was Xiangnan's rapid use of surgical blades to coil up and relieve the pressure of Maki's threads, or seizing the moment Maki approached to nail her with that elbow strike, both fully demonstrated that he was keenly alert to Maki's assault and could respond in time. It showed the man was also a practical, combat-type nin user. He might not have as much battle experience as them, but certainly no shortage either. But the most bizarre aspect, the one that led to Maki's current predicament, was the man's Nen ability, a conjurer ability. That pair of gloves. In Shulnrik and the other two's eyes, it was clear from Xiongnan and Maki's entire scuffle that Xiongnan's gloves evidently had some effect. Those gloves seemingly allowed him to inflict some sort of disease upon whomever he touched. But the specific mechanism was unclear. I do apologize. My friend here was a bit hasty. On her behalf, let me offer an apology. Could you please treat her? Shulnrik's face had lost its earlier smile, eyeing Xiongnan quite seriously now. He'd already formed an assessment of Xiongnan's strength. 1-on-1, he wasn't certain they could take him. But 3 against 1. If it came to that, the troop absolutely had enough power to send Xiongnan to hell. Still, this was just a routine little mission for their troop's small unit. There was no need to sacrifice Maki in the process. It wasn't worth it. They did, after all, value their comrades. Maki finished speaking. Shulnrik glanced at the still conscious but pallid-faced Maki. Her complexion had turned violet. Certainly no problem. Xiongnan smiled faintly. Maki looked to Shulnrik, then to Xiongnan. The next moment, she let go, retracting her threads. Immediately afterward, her body slackened to the floor. Establishing treatment plan. Beginning surgery. Xiongnan's eyes flickered, the white gloves on both his hands gradually turned crimson, as if stained with blood. He crouched down, carefully examining Maki's condition at close range. Meanwhile, a faint swirl of Nen gathered at his right palm. My apologies. Would you 3 mind stepping away? Xiongnan said, smiling at Franklin, Shulnrik, and Shizuku, who stood nearby. Rest assured, since I've agreed to treat her, I'll heal her properly. After all, we have no personal grudge. And if I didn't want to save her, I'd never have promised. Besides, with only so much space in this warehouse, if anything happened, I couldn't run far. Right? Xiongnan shrugged. Shulnrik observed him, then with a small nod, turned away along with the other 2 members. At that, Xiongnan began pulling back Maki's clothing, making certain movements. All the 3 troop members could sense was a shift in Xiongnan aura. They couldn't see exactly what he did. 2 or 3 minutes later, Xiongnan straightened up again, announcing, the patient's out of danger. This time, Shizuku rushed forward, quickly cradling the unconscious, but breathing normally, and color returning. Maki in her arms. Verifying Maki truly was, as Xiongnan said, no longer in crisis. She pulled aside Maki's attire to check her body. There was no visible wound. Whoosh! A harsh gust. Franklin sprang over yet again, pressing the muzzle-like finger joints of his hand right to Xiongnan's temple. Xiongnan, hands in pockets, just gave Franklin a smiling glance, then looked toward Shulnrik. This guy seems dangerous. Should we kill him? Franklin said, turning to Shulnrik. It wasn't surprising to Xiongnan that the troop might flip on him at any moment. No point. If we kill him, we can't touch the other 4 anyway, and word's still going to get out. For one, he's proven he's not sent by an enemy. Judging by how he dealt with Maki's attack, he was simply acting in self-defense. If he had any hidden agenda, the other 4 would have made a run for it the instant fighting began. Since by then they'd know they'd been exposed. Rather than staying put like idiots. Also, he is clearly unafraid of our phantom troop. Means he, much like us, has already put life and death aside. In a sense, he's a madman too. Additionally, I can't fully confirm what he did or didn't do to Maki. I'd rather not gamble on that. Shulnrik's words made Franklin glance at Xiongnan, who stood relaxed, then he lowered his arm. 17. Do excuse us for being so cautious. If you already know about our phantom troop, I'm sure you realize plenty of people are gunning for us, both openly and in secret. Plus your group's identity and the timing you took the job is pretty suspect, so. Shulnrik offered Xiongnan a brief explanation. I get it. Xiongnan similarly had no desire for conflict with the troop. All of this was simply the system pushing events forward. In truth, from the moment the mission started, Xiongnan felt certain that unlocking a storyline event here wasn't worth the interference. Dealing with the Phantom troop is complicated. Short of actually joining them, you can't guarantee your own safety. They're unpredictable and unscrupulous, unlike the Kakin Empire. Hence better just to complete the quest and pass. As for forging deeper connections with the spider, forget it. Let's get to the mission now? Xiongnan switched the subject. Both sides calmly agreed not to delve deeper into Maki's earlier hostility. Sure. Shulnrik nodded. He walked to the small van in the warehouse, patting the side. You 5 need to drive this car to a certain destination within a set time limit. Once there, someone will meet you. He smiled. Where to? Xiongnan guessed the location. Meteor City, Shulnrik replied. Indeed. Only us? Xiongnan asked. Not exactly. One of our members will come along too, for insurance against any interference along the way. But since a skilled man like you is around, guess we have little to worry about, Schlenrich said. They're not here yet, so we'll have to wait. Who? Xiongnan's heart skipped a beat. Huh? Schlenrich gave him a curious look. What's your deal? You seem really interested in who from our troop is coming. Don't tell me it's someone you happen to know? Or maybe there's some deeper connection? No, just asking. Don't get paranoid. Xiongnan gave a light laugh. Schlenrich was a sharp one. Just by him casually asking who's coming, the troop's tech expert had sniffed out a trace of ulterior meaning. After that exchange, Xiongnan's group received a system prompt. On Xiongnan's screen, the mission details changed. They had 10 days to deliver this vehicle to a coordinate in Meteor City. Chapter 92, Qualifications X Pitfall. Inside the warehouse, Xiongnan and the other few players sat together. Far off stood Schlenrich's 4-person group. Franklin was intentionally or unintentionally keeping an eye on them. Or rather, keeping an eye on Xiongnan. While conversing quietly with Shizuku, Maki had not yet regained consciousness, but her condition had stabilized, indicating there was no longer any danger. Those few troop members seemed to be saying something. Xiongnan could guess the gist: stay on guard against him. His presence, as well as his sudden appearance, was surely unexpected to their small troop unit. According to the original story, before the new auction began, the troop was indeed missing some members for quite a while. As the leader, Grollo would typically have 2 or 3 troop members by his side. Nobunaga and Yavojin were one pair, Fitten and Finks another, and Hisoka, who replaced Imokage, generally roamed freely, Xiongnan thought to himself. All the while, under Franklin's watchful gaze, Xiongnan pulled out his phone and dialed a number. A few troop members noticed this action but did not react heavily. Schlenrich obviously did not think Xiongnan was trying anything. He regarded Xiongnan as a smart person, and the present situation was very straightforward. While Xiongnan strength had earned them a degree of respect, it did not mean that Xiongnan and his fellow nameless town members could do whatever they wanted. If the troop really chose to, they could still kill Xiongnan and the others. The only cost might be failing this operation, that's all. Hello? A voice answered on the other end. This was Mia from the Zetabe Mafia family in Zerta City, the very faction Xiongnan had propped up. You guys have connections with the underworld in Glam Gasland on the European continent? Xiongnan asked directly. Glam Gasland? Mia hesitated, then replied, no. Our family sphere is basically just within the borders of Republic of Pitakia. Over on other continents. Go gather some intel. Even a high-priced bounty is fine. I'll give you 1 hour, see if you can learn about any major incidents that happened recently in Glam Gasland's underground world. Let me know. Alright. Hearing Xiongnan's grave tone, Mia hurried to carry it out. Then Xiongnan's gaze fell on the van parked in the warehouse. He could more or less guess the cargo or stuff inside, but it wasn't convenient to check, and the troop obviously wouldn't let them see what's inside. By his side, Dylan and the other players appeared rather anxious. No one had expected that, upon contacting these storyline characters, the situation would escalate like this. Although they themselves could not sense the troop's information, they had at least seen Xiongnan fight. Evidently on the verge of mortal danger. If not for their captain's formidable strength, they might already have been wiped out. And while they couldn't perceive those storyline characters, they could hear Xiongnan's voice and hints in his remarks. Words like phantom troop, spider. Those phrases alone practically hammered their minds with terror, leaving them uneasy in their seats. Could it be that these few folks, whose faces they couldn't see, were members of the phantom troop? To players, that group from the original story, occupying such massive arcs and shining with overwhelming presence, was basically the face of death. They. Captain Dylan, the only one here who possessed Nin, looked visibly shaken. Holding his composure under such tension had left his knuckles pale. Although the system's protection guaranteed their safety from storyline characters, simply having contact with the spider meant that if they drew the troops' attention, once their protection period ended, wouldn't they be at the troops' mercy? Initially, Xiongnan had called them nobody side characters, and Dylan had believed it. Clearly, the captain was only calming their nerves. No problem. I've already settled it with them. We're just on a job, so don't worry. Xiongnan replied with a faint smile. He was even able to smile right now. His 4 companions looked at each other, wondering whether to cry or laugh. Their minds were in chaos. Captain. This isn't normal, is it? For us, it's just the 4th round of the extinction game. How can we be running into a group on the level of the Phantom Troop? I used to talk with a higher level player, he was at the 5th round. He said that in his own 4th and 5th round missions, though he did encounter some storyline characters, they were all quite minor. His mission had been to take the Hunter exam, avoid Tompa's schemes, and gain the examiner's approval. But Dylan breathed unsteadily. Clearly, as a comrade, he'd withheld plenty of intel until now. Facing the current predicament, he had no choice but to reveal some of it. Xiongnan said nothing, only kept silent. He too perceived that something was off. Why? In the previous mission, via official resources, Xiongnan had tried to check for leads. Kakin Empire's establishing diplomatic ties with Republic of Padakia was obviously something he had orchestrated, unlocking that plot point. So it implied that other players, passing the 4th or 5th rounds, might have done similarly big things. But in that time frame, scanning major world events, aside from Kakin and Padakia forging diplomatic ties, only a few affairs really stood out. Some big, some small. Like the ancient ruins discovered by the Hunter Association that had drawn V5's attention, or a villain arms dealer on V5's wanted list caught by a terrorist hunter, a coastal country discovering a never-before-seen marine life, or a monster threat in certain lands. Xiongnan could not confirm which were triggered by players, but presumably some were. Even so, from the total number of players participating in that wave, he or others who had unlocked plotlines were quite rare. Meaning, any player who manages to unlock a story event might face a different standard for the next tasks. Possibly an increased difficulty. Recalling his guess about the system's intentions, Xiongnan was fairly sure of it. In other words, any player who has triggered a storyline might come under special attention. That's a benefit but also a double-edged sword. For instance, now, if he wasn't strong enough, Maki would likely have killed him already. So cunning. Xiongnan narrowed his eyes. That was his evaluation of the system. Beep, beep, beep. Just then, inside the quiet warehouse, Xiongnan phone chimed. He looked at Franklin some meters away, who stared back, then calmly answered the call. Naturally, it was from Mia. Got it. He finished listening to her intel and hung up. Captain, any news? Some squadmate promptly asked. Nothing special. Only that Glam gas lens had some small disturbances recently. It's unconnected to us. We just wait for the other troop members to arrive, then drive the car to Meteor City. No need overthinking. From another standpoint, with troop members alongside us, if any enemies plan to attack, they likely can't do much. Xiongnan said breezily. Everything has two sides. He tried encouraging them. But here, he excluded the possibility of enemy players. If they had a squad like Xiongnan, with new players under system protection, they wouldn't worry about storyline interference. Then again, Xiongnan so lightly brushed it off mostly to keep morale from crumbling before the mission started. Because now that Xiongnan had gleaned from the troops' arrangement, this so-called escort job, plus the troops' willingness to pay an outside force, the situation was anything but simple. For the Phantom Troop to part with money. Hey! Surely it was another pitfall. Equally, it might be a mission of no return. Xiongnan couldn't even be bothered to roast the system anymore. Chapter 93, Switching X stumped with a clang, the warehouse door was violently pushed open. The person whom Schulnrich had been waiting for finally arrived. A pallid, cold-faced fellow with thin brows and eyes, both hands in his pockets, strode in. He wore his hair parted down the center in a dark blue style, with a tall collar covering half his face, painted with a skull motif. Interestingly, his physique was childlike, and he wore a windbreaker similar to Xiongnan. Just of different make and style, fully covering his body. This was Phantom Troops number 2, Fitton Porter. Hey there, Fitton. You're here, Schulnrich, who hadn't seen his companion for a while, waved enthusiastically. At once, Xiongnan brow rose slightly. A troublesome character has shown up. Among the Phantom Troops' pure combat members, Fitton was a transformation-type non-user, cold and merciless, adept at interrogation. In Xiongnan view, if Schulnrich and some others could barely be considered somewhat normal, then people like Fitton, Finks, and Yevojin were the ones who fully embodied their personal impulses. Though they acted under the team's plan in some sense, they didn't necessarily obey Krallo unconditionally. Occasionally, there might be internal friction, even hostility. Fitton, in particular, had a prickly temperament beneath that seemingly placid exterior, no less irritable than Yevojin. Friend or foe, he recognized no ties nor empathy. He grew up that way, and none of these troop members were exactly chummy. Right upon stepping in, Fitton narrowed his eyes at the few unfamiliar faces. Xiongnan group, specifically. In reality, he could only see Xiongnan himself. Approaching Schulnrich, his cold gaze with hidden menace never left Xiongnan. Who are these small fries? Fitton spoke in a frosty tone, full of hostility, caring nothing for politeness, nor for any hidden complexities or external environment. He said whatever he wanted. "Oh, these are some helpers I hired." Schlenrich walked over, grinning. "Helpers?" At that word, Fitton's brow furrowed, looking somewhat baffled. "Since when did we need help? And why so urgent to call me here?" "Nothing major." Schlenrich scratched his head. "Where's Finks? I thought you'd both arrive together." Fitton gave no answer. Don't be mad. This situation's a bit unusual, plus hiring them is just to ensure someone delivers cargo to Meteor City." Schlenrich sensed Fitton's displeasure and promptly tried consoling him, pulling him aside to talk in hushed tones. "Humphrey." Fitton occasionally glanced over at Xiangnan with eyes like a venomous serpent. "We even need these useless people? I can drive the van back myself. Having more manpower spares you some trouble, doesn't it?" Knowing full well Fitton's disposition, Schlenrich obviously knew how to dissuade him. "So, if I'm not satisfied, I can kill them at any time?" Fitton said recklessly, cracking his knuckles. "Don't do that. They're working for us. At least. Don't scare them off." Schlenrich forced a laugh, eyeing Xiangnan out of concern that he might react. Fortunately, although Xiangnan heard every bit, he remained calm. Schlenrich thought it over but was still uneasy, so he suddenly leaned close, whispering something into Fitton's ear. No one knew what Schlenrich said, but right afterward, Fitton instantly jerked around, glaring at Xiangnan as though poised to kill him. Schlenrich promptly clamped a hand on Fitton's shoulder with a grave expression and shook his head. At a distance, Xiangnan merely smiled without a word, calmly waiting for them to finish discussing. After a short time, they seemed to reach an agreement. Schlenrich and Fitton walked back together. 17. "We'll leave this mission to you," Schlenrich said with a bright smile. "No problem." Xiangnan likewise smiled. At this point, Maki, who had been unconscious, finally came to. She looked around and, sensing her body was sound, promptly rose to her feet, glaring coldly at Xiangnan. Mingled with anger in her gaze. "You guys drive," Fitton ordered, hands in pockets, his tone one of command as he opened the van door, seating himself in the passenger side. Xiangnan had Dylan take the wheel, while he himself sat in the back. He recognized Fitton's personality and, since Schlenrich and the others were present, and regardless, the mission had to move along. Xiangnan saw no reason to create more friction on trivial matters, risking the mission's completion. He just wanted to end this job soon and clear around. Thus, not long after Xiangnan's initial contact with that Phantom Troop's small team, they drove off in the small van, following the planned route. In the vehicle, Fitton's legs were propped against the dashboard, silent. His chilling presence seemed to cool the inside air to freezing. The driver, Dylan, barely dared to breathe. Though he couldn't see who Fitton really was in the troop, being so close to what was effectively the embodiment of death made him feel on pins and needles. He clearly sensed something ominous in the van. "Hey, you!" Fitton stared at Xiangnan through the rearview mirror and said, "You better be useful. Otherwise, before the enemy even takes a shot, I'll be slicing you guys up, so you don't get in my way." "No need for that threat." Xiangnan, eyes shut as though resting, retorted, "Leaving aside whether you can kill me, the others are protected by Nameless Town's power and you can't harm them at all. If you're so eager to deal with someone, think about how to handle the predicament in front of us. Given all that your troop pulled off in Glam, I doubt we can waltz right out without trouble from the Mafia or the wealthy magnate Howell's private forces. They've already locked down the entire district around Glam Gasland." "You're questioning me?" Fitton's voice at once turned icy, brimming with lethal hostility. His knuckles popped. Xiangnan merely gave a faint smile and took out his phone again. Facing it, he said on speaker, "I think maybe you should dispatch some other troop members to travel with us. We haven't gone far yet. Otherwise, we'll end up in a life-or-death spat before meeting any enemies. Frankly, he annoys me." "Ha ha ha." On the other end came Schlenrich's awkward laugh. "Fitton." Schlenrich's tone softened, as if pleading. Fitton's forehead veins bulged as he let out a tsk, evidently quite peeved, his eyes still fixed on Xiangnan like a hawk. The killing intent did not subside in the least, but at length, he forcibly reined in any impulse to act. He did still possess some reason, apparently. Xiangnan saw this and hung up. Yet Fitton continued glaring at him, so Xiangnan again shut his eyes, letting him stare if he really wanted to. Half an hour later, Fitton stood alone on the roadside, watching the van's taillights recede in the distance. His brow veins protruded another trace. Because Schlenrich's consideration had him switch Franklin in place of Fitton. They'd dumped him on the street. "Fitton, don't be mad. I just felt leaving you behind can better attract the Glam Gasland Mafia's fire, so you can quickly wipe them out, giving Franklin and the others more time to break out." Schlenrich's voice came from the phone in his hand, an attempt at appeasing him. "You're messing with me?" Fenton's grip almost crushed the phone. No, I really thought it through, seriously. Fenton. Chapter 94, Blow It Up. A swap brought Franklin onto the vehicle. All at once, the atmosphere in the team became much more harmonious. At the very least, Xiangnan could engage in productive conversation with his particular spider member. He maintained constant communication with Schlimrick on the other end. They're returning to the city of Glamgasland once more to attack the Mafia, so the military and hired guns sealing off the city's exits will definitely deploy at once to reinforce them. But some will likely remain. From here, our task is to break through the remaining blockade. We particularly need to watch out for those from Nameless Town. As the vehicle sped along, Xiangnan issued this reminder. He meant that Schlimrick's group would continue attacking the city's Mafia to draw away forces and create a lure the tiger from the mountain situation. Though the Mafia plus the wealthy magnates' private armies might have been partially diverted, the remainder still had to be contended with. Even if it was not the main force, Glamgasland was a large metropolis on the European continent, and the Mafia's foundation was nothing like the small town of Zerta, where Xiangnan had previously dealt with only 3 local factions. In Glamgasland, there were easily dozens, if not hundreds, of underworld cliques, intricately entangled, some even linked to the Ten Dons. I'd heard that in your Nameless Town, members often kill each other. A strange organization indeed, muttered Franklin, his eyes fixed on the highway outside the windshield, his voice muffled. Numbers alone aren't frightening, but if the person commanding the opposing side happens to be a player, that would change the dynamic significantly. Xiangnan let out a short laugh, offering no explanation. You're in the Mafia, right? Judging from how you seem to know what we did. Franklin spoke again. It was clear Schlimrick hired this security team from somewhere, with an obvious purpose. I only have some contacts in the underworld. Although we're escorting your stuff, this assignment also concerns our own survival. Even if Schlimrick decided not to tell us details, for the sake of completing the task, I believe it's necessary to gather some intel. Xiangnan said. Indeed, Xiangnan had learned from Mia what kind of colossal mess the spiders had stirred up. Recently, a world-renowned symphony orchestra's performance attracted a large number of top-level dignitaries in European continent, including some Mafia bosses with deep roots in Glam's local territory, as well as the world-famous Tycoon Howl. Then, the Phantom Troop attacked the performance venue, kidnapping these high-profile figures. Afterward, they demanded ransom. But once the Mafia and the rich families paid an enormous sum, the spiders reneged, killing them all anyway and discarding the corpses. Such betrayal infuriated the entire city's underworld, plus those rich families also went all out trying to kill the Phantom Troop. Because the troop's approach lacked any semblance of honor. They took the money yet still murdered the hostages, an act that incited everyone's wrath. Over the years, plenty of forces had fallen victim to the spiders, whose infamy was well known. But this time, Schlimrick's small squad had provoked not just the Mafia, but wealthy moguls as well. Those who reach such pinnacles of wealth definitely hold stakes and influence across many spheres. A single death among that circle would make other top magnates very wary of the Phantom Troop. Nobody wants to become their food. Moreover, this wasn't the troop's first time targeting the wealthy, so when the matter blew up, countless other big-money individuals likely joined in clandestine support to rid themselves of the troop. In any world, while money isn't truly omnipotent, it can function as if it were. Look at the original story's Greed Island arc with that top tycoon Batra. Just for his beloved, he could easily muster numerous nin users with enough funding. Similarly, here, the murdered wealthy figure in Glam, though perhaps not as loaded as Batra, was still among the ranks of the world's richest. Before, when the troop attacked major targets, none had reached this level. This time, they touched the nerve of that entire social echelon. Such a wealthy family's resources might even rival a small nation's GDP. Their private armies, though not a nationwide force, remain formidable. That, in Xiangnan's view, was the real headache. Not just the Mafia but also these magnates. And that's without factoring in potential hostile players. With enough money, who knows how many hidden non-users might come at them. Worst of all, if they tried fleeing Glamgasland but remained within the country's borders, the official military might also get involved, so until they reach Meteor City, there's no guarantee they're safe. Eventually, after a while, Xiangnan's group parked the van in some mountainous woodlands. They awaited Schlimrick's call. Inside, nobody spoke. Beep beep beep. Suddenly, Franklin's phone rang. He calmly answered. Franklin. Have you reached the checkpoint of the enemy? From the background came noise of gunfire, clashing and chaos, with Schlimrick cheerfully asking. Their forces should have redeployed, flooding into the battlefield. You can make your move now. Schlimrick informed him. Franklin hung up. Dylan promptly floored the accelerator, driving the vehicle out of the woods toward the winding roadway. They'd chosen this route as the most remote access point connecting Glam to the outside. Nonetheless, it might still be guarded. Presently it was deep into the night, pitch black outside. Unsurprisingly, after barely 10 more minutes, just as they were about to leave Glam's jurisdiction, they spotted a row of blinding searchlights ahead, turning night to day. They saw large numbers of Mafia operatives standing on the road, with a row of black sedans parked nearby. "Leader, what do we do?" Dylan asked, panicked. Though there was still some distance, he could see clearly that these men were all armed, some with heavy weapons. "Step on it. We're breaking through," Xiongnan said expressionlessly. "Huh?" Dylan froze. "Boss. Maybe we could pretend to accept inspection, then once out of the car," a female player in the team suggested. "If they didn't slow down but rather sped up, the other side would immediately suspect something and open fire." "You know nothing of the Mafia," Xiongnan simply replied. "Spiders caused a massive uproar, so in the eyes of the Mafia and the wealthy, it's likely a savage retribution. Inspection was probably just a charade. They must have planned to kill anyone who tried leaving, to ensure spiders can't slip away disguised. Anyone wanting to leave Glam typically would have arranged connections or official clearance in advance. Anyone else likely had no chance. Hence, by the moment they appeared on the road, there was no chance to negotiate or retreat. Indeed, that's exactly how it was. "Boss, a car's coming," a Mafia lieutenant on the highway spoke into his walkie-talkie. Having heard his subordinate's report, the underboss, flicking away his cigarette, didn't even glance at the approaching headlights. He simply gave a cold directive: "Blow it up." "Yes." Chapter 95, Angry. Boom, boom, boom. As the van sped up, it roared past along the road. Deafening explosions erupted one after another. Blinding flashes of fire and thick smoke tried to engulf the vehicle. But gripping the steering wheel, Dylan weaved left and right with intense focus. That gang of Mafia had apparently buried explosive charges around the road in advance. Rat-a-tat. The car windows slid open, and Franklin Bordeaux activated his NIN ability. His double-hand machine guns. A furious spray of NIN bullets erupted from his finger joints. The widespread damage of these bullets was simply unstoppable to a group of regular Mafia members. With that torrent of bullets, they were mowed down like straw. The density of Franklin's fire was astonishing. A single man's firepower completely suppressed a large gathering of gangsters. By the time the van reached the Mafia's blockade, the ground was already littered with corpses and rivers of blood. Xiongnan likewise opened the rear door. During the high-speed driving, he flipped onto the car roof. He flung a throwing knife, striking a rocket projectile that was coming their way. It detonated midair. There were still hidden enemies on both sides of the road in the darkness. Xiongnan immediately shouted to Franklin, "You and I stay behind." Franklin got the message. He understood Xiongnan intent, and jumped off from the front passenger side. Xiongnan likewise flipped off the top of the moving car. Meanwhile, Dylan kept driving, ramming aside the Mafia's vehicles, crashing onward. There had been no need for words. Xiongnan and Franklin split left and right, darting into the darkness. As for the few who remained in the car, they used the opportunity to escape further. Very soon, the night air was shaken by chaotic gunshots and flashing lights, plus shrieks of agony. With Xiongnan and Franklin's abilities, the foes lurking in the shadows were simply helpless. Although not particularly threatening, they were scattered and fairly numerous, so it still took a few minutes to wipe them out. After a while, the tumult on the highway quieted. Xiongnan emerged from the darkness, his clothes stained with blood. He started sprinting at full speed, far exceeding typical automobile velocity. Chasing after the van that had already vanished from sight. Even though these were not formidable enemies, they had set a widespread ambush, so it wasted a bit of time. He and Franklin stayed behind to eliminate these thugs precisely to prevent them from reporting back and summoning reinforcements. But, given the current circumstances, that might still be futile. The enemy had mined the road in advance, confirming they had anticipated this route. This was clearly a trap. Possibly the Mafia's plan, or a scheme by opposing players. As for whether Schulnrich had noticed it before assigning this route, perhaps yes, perhaps no. In any case, they were gambling on the Mafia's arrogance, and also trusting in troop members' strength. Such things they'd done many times. But for Dylan and his fellow novices, it was extremely dangerous. Swoosh. After Xiongnan had run a short distance along the road, a figure caught up from behind. It was Franklin. The pair's exaggerated running speed caused the surroundings to flash by like a slideshow, as if the scenery on both sides was zipping past in illusions. Their clothes rubbing against the air even produced a faint wailing sound. "No survivors?" Xiongnan asked directly. "None," Franklin replied. "The enemy's preparations were thorough. The entire route is likely full of ambushes. We can't entirely cut off their intel. Let's be careful. Xiongnan said while spotting, ahead on the highway, the parked van. Both Xiongnan and Franklin sensed something amiss. The headlights were still on, the doors open. But right beside the tire lay a corpse. Looks like they made it in time. Xiongnan and Franklin's speed was fast enough. If they had been any slower, the people in the vehicle might all have been slaughtered. In the blink of an eye, Xiongnan and Franklin dashed up to the front of the van and halted abruptly. The body on the ground belonged to one of the 5 players on their side. Originally the driver, Dylan, was now badly wounded, bleeding from his abdomen, leaning against a hood. Seeing Xiongnan and Franklin appear, he finally exhaled in relief. "Captain. Take him back to the car." Xiongnan didn't even look at him, directly giving Franklin instructions. As if at this moment, Xiongnan had become the leader, and Phantom Troops Franklin lost his initiative. Franklin said nothing. Silently, he carried Dylan to the van, laying him inside. As for the corpse on the ground, there was no spare attention for it. After this, Franklin was of no further use. Because he realized, the assailants blocking the road were Nameless Town members. Meaning, only Xiongnan, likewise from Nameless Town, could threaten them. Great timing. Among the 7 opposing players, a pink pigtail woman chewing gum blew a whistle in delight. They really just served themselves up, haha. She blew a bubble that popped loudly, fixing her gaze on Xiongnan. "It seems you must be their captain? That guy by your side. Is he from the Spider?" Seeing her lead, the hostile players, smiling or excited, lined up, with no trace of fear for the troop. After all, they each still had the system's protection. They didn't fear a direct assault from troop members. That would come after. As long as they could kill Xiongnan group and thwart the troops' plan, they'd fulfill their contract with the Glam City's mafia. Xiongnan glanced at the body of his deceased teammate, his face expressionless. He was angry. Because, as captain, maintaining the survival rate of his squad also concerned the system's assessment of him. That is, hidden points. Originally, by not unlocking this story route, his potential gains this round had dropped. Now, even his hidden points were further reduced. Naturally Xiongnan was displeased. His arm, which had been hanging at his side, let a surgical scalpel slip from his sleeve into his grip. "You look really angry." The woman saw him alone heading over to her group, presumably intending a one-on-several fight. She didn't sense the gravity of it, so she laughed. "No way. You wanna beat all 7 of us by yourself? Come on, get real. I'll give you a chance. Hand over the Phantom Troops hideout, plus all your intel about their plan. And we might spare you. Our mission is only to help Glam's Mafia get vengeance, but you know, we can't possibly fight the troop directly. So long as we ruin their objective and recover that ransom money, we succeed. If the Mafia doesn't insist on silencing you guys, we can let you live." She had scarcely finished speaking. A glint of cold light flared in midair. In that instant, a razor-sharp knife tip ripped across the distance, stopping mere centimeters from her pupil. The woman's pupils shrank. She whipped her head aside just in time to dodge. But as soon as her gaze shifted away from the knife, a large palm clad in white gloves seized her face like an iron clamp. From her perspective, she glimpsed the upward swirl of a black coat's hem. "Thanks for your kindness, but I'm not interested." Along with the cold voice of the man, came the dull thud of her head being slammed to the ground. Arg. Although pinned down by Xiongnan heavy hand, forcing her body onto the floor, she still exploded with murderous spirit, eyes brimming with savagery. She bit her teeth, intending to fight back. Boom. The woman's head was hammered into the ground, embedded into it. The man's methods were undeniably violent and brutal. Her body quivered, mouth spewing saliva. Clenching her teeth, she thrust a dagger at Xiongnan's temple. "Brain dead." Then, Xiongnan spoke 3 words quietly. Once he said them, the woman's movements halted, her pupils contracted like needle points. Her eyes lost all luster. Then Xiongnan, stooping and pressing his palm on her, forcibly lifted her limp body as if it were trash. With a swift motion, whoosh, she was hurled far into the distance, vanishing in midair. The opposing players. Chapter 96, Change of plan among the remaining 6 opposing players, 4 possessed none abilities. Unfortunately for them, Xiongnan barged straight into their formation. And with the instant killing of the Extinction 4 team leader, the pink-haired woman, they lost their linchpin. Moreover, they never anticipated it would end up like this. Standing beside the van, Franklin witnessed a spectacular slaughter. He saw that after their companion's death, Xiongnan, as if provoked by his teammate's death, became genuinely enraged. Faced with these so-called Nameless Town members, Xiongnan showed no mercy. The 3 throwing knives launched with the flutter of his coat, though few in number, instantly shattered the morale of the 6 survivors. Immediately, the 3 weakest were killed on the spot. As for the remaining 3, between Xiangnan's swift martial assaults and the strange abilities of those peculiar gloves, the battle's balance tipped within moments. Altogether, it took less than 2 minutes. That was the true gulf between a genuine master and average nin users. Franklin's expression remained as usual. Xiangnan's mindset was exceedingly clear. Merely from his displayed combat prowess and cunning, Franklin was thoroughly surprised. Xiangnan's tactic was obviously to eliminate the weaker ones first. Though the first 3 had little threat, they could still create minor diversions, stalling time and letting the remaining 3 actual nin users gather themselves. Everyone understood that once a few nin users began properly displaying their powers and cooperating, the situation could become complicated. Nin battles often hinged on unexpected abilities, sometimes capable of bypassing raw power differences. Troublesome indeed. And for the group's current precarious mission, time was of the essence. A swift victory was paramount. Franklin himself could have accomplished such a scene. If not for that mysterious protective power covering them, his own inability might have wiped out his so-called trash even faster. Of course, his style was different from Xiangnan's. As an emitter, Franklin specialized in ranged attacks, but as a member of a troop, his close combat was hardly something most nin users could match. They were too weak. Those nameless town individuals fell short on all fronts. Nevertheless, what piqued Franklin's curiosity was, what exactly was that organization called Nameless Town? Why did it appear that, though they belonged to the same group, these members could just as easily kill each other or turn on their own? Curious indeed. Seems it wasn't mere coincidence he could threaten Maki. A man like this, ending up working for underground security? His past can't be simple. Franklin mused. Huh? Soon, Franklin noticed something. Xiangnan, having killed all enemies, hadn't immediately returned to the van. Instead, he was crouched atop one of the Nameless Town corpses, his back toward Franklin, seemingly doing something. From time to time, Xiangnan's hands rose, holding medical equipment. He's a doctor? Franklin guessed. After a brief while, Xiangnan finally stood. Wiping blood from his face, he strolled back to the vehicle, hands in pockets. He needed to treat Dylan's injuries, so the van got handed off to another driver. More ambushes lie ahead. Now that we're exposed, Xiangnan said gravely while operating on Dylan's wound, we can't travel by land. The Mafia's people and that wealthy Howell family's private troops have already sealed off the subsequent roads. At this rate, not to mention a day, even a month might not be enough to leave this country safely. What do you mean? Franklin eyed him. How can you be sure of enemy movements? Just now, that person told me. Xiangnan replied calmly, referring naturally to the enemy player he'd just interrogated. He confessed on the spot. How do you know he wasn't lying? He wouldn't lie. You can be certain the intel is genuine. Xiangnan's remark made Franklin's heart stir. Schlenrich's group was still wreaking havoc in Glamgas land, so even if the local gang plus the wealthy man's forces wanted to close the entire city, the main body of troops would likely be drawn away. They wouldn't be able to commit as much manpower to chase them. Breaking out might still be doable with Xiangnan and Franklin's combined strength. But Xiangnan quietly observed. The real trouble isn't those hoodlums, but the wealthy scion's influence. The person you troop folks double-cross this time is a globally famous billionaire. Don't underestimate the leverage of someone at that level. He eased off the red gloves from his hands. Gazing at Franklin, Xiangnan phoned Schlenrich. Meanwhile, Dylan's abdominal wound was stitched closed. Xiangnan then had the van veer off the highway, hiding in a patch of woods. The call connected. On the other end, amidst gunfire and chaotic noise, Schlenrich's voice came. 17? The plan's changing. Xiangnan relayed the situation, recounting what had happened. But if we can't go by land, we haven't prepared for that. Schlenrich hesitated. We took the job. We'll still ensure the cargo gets delivered to Meteor City. Leave it to me. Xiangnan stated. All right. Schlenrich paused for a moment, neither refusing nor pushing, and ended the call. Next, Xiangnan dialed another number. At that moment, through gaps in the trees under the night sky, he glimpsed swirling lights in the distance. A helicopter. Evidently, the intel was correct. Somebody had indeed blocked them by air. Elsewhere, in a luxurious hall piled with corpses, Schlenrich slipped his phone away, expression calm. What's wrong? Maki, rolling her shoulders, glanced over. Schlenrich repeated everything Xiangnan had said, that Franklin's group encountered trouble, Xiangnan wanted to change the plan, and so on. TSK, I already warned you, you didn't listen. Maki's face turned cold. You told me your instincts felt uneasy about him, but you also said it might not be relevant to this operation. Just that you felt the man seemed threatening. Schlimmer gave a wry smile. Then he lifted a finger, emphasizing, based on my investigation and analysis, I wouldn't be wrong. No matter if the Mafia or the wealthy science forces come out, it won't hinder us significantly. Having any troop member present means it's easy for us to slip away. Even if it gets a bit harder, it's just extra time. Unless it involves some nameless town scheme. That's another matter. He paused, pinching his chin with confidence. I suspect 17 is doing it on purpose. Doing it on purpose? Maki gave him a curious look. Yeah. He must have realized our mindset. He directly called me, not Franklin. Probably to aggravate things, give us a greater sense of urgency. If I'm not mistaken, he's definitely pulled some tricks right under Franklin's nose, though they didn't notice. This guy's extremely cunning. Schlimmer sighed. But it's fine. It hasn't spiraled out of control yet. Even though he spoke like it was dire, it's mostly to knock us a bit. No big deal. So long as the package is delivered, we're good. Schlimmer finished with a casual grin. Don't mind them, let's keep going. Chapter 97, Connections. With Schlimmer's intellect, he might well have caught on. After a moment, Xiangnan put away his phone, thinking to himself, yes, the current predicament the team is in was, in fact, something he deliberately orchestrated. When killing off the Mafia's men just now, he used one of their phones to leak information externally, thus drawing the enemy's main focus on them. But whether or not Schlimmer had realized this didn't matter much to Xiangnan. He only wanted to use resolving the current crisis to convey one message to the spiders: don't get any funny ideas. As for the enemy players arriving so quickly, that was something Xiangnan hadn't quite expected. He could conclude that his entire setup probably involved players from the opposing faction. Up there, a helicopter has been hovering in the sky all along. If we head out now, we'll undoubtedly be spotted right away. But staying hidden here isn't a solution either. The longer we wait, the more backup the enemy can gather, and the bigger their numbers will be. If this keeps up and they fully surround us, I'm afraid we won't be able to get away. In the team, the other players looked anxiously at Xiangnan. Let's wait a bit more. Xiangnan appeared quite calm. He threw a glance at Franklin, who likewise seemed very composed. Since Schlimmer had already agreed to alter the plan, Franklin had no objections. After another half hour, a helicopter once again appeared overhead. This time, however, it did not fly away but precisely locked onto their coordinates and slowly descended. It belonged to the Mafia. Right now, the only way to pass undetected by the Mafia was to rely on people who were themselves part of the Mafia. And these could not be from this local Glamgaslands Mafia, because given how things were, the local forces would definitely recognize them. Although the Zitabi family was just a mid-range gang in the Republic of Padakia, Mia's identity was somewhat special. She was a lover to the confidant of one of the 10 Dons. The underworld as a whole was overseen by the 10 Dons, but beneath them, mafia groups and syndicates were extremely complicated and chaotic. Each Don held sway over a different territory. Even though this entire affair was fairly serious, it seemed largely localized to Glamgas. The outside world probably didn't fully know about it yet. Ordinarily, no small-time mafia group could intervene at such a moment. But if one of the 10 Don's subordinates stepped in, results would be immediate. Whether Mia paid money, or other costs to secure a route, Xiangnan didn't really care. Open up the rear of the van and move the goods onto the helicopter. Xiangnan said to Franklin. At this juncture, continuing to hide no longer made sense. Inside the van were, of course, the spoils or ransom that the Phantom Troop had extorted, nothing else. Franklin opened up the rear, hauling out crates of Jenny, along with valuables of substantial worth, onto the aircraft. Before long, several of them boarded, vanishing into the darkness of night. Captain. Are you actually with the Mafia? An hour later, the helicopter had completely left Glamgas's territory, with no hindrances. That meant the team, though they lost one member, had passed the mission's most perilous initial phase. One of the female players looked at Xiangnan with disbelief. Being able to call upon the underworld's force and calmly have them airlift everyone out of harm's way was beyond astonishing. It showed how potent he must be. Some kind of behind-the-scenes mafia big shot? Just have a little connection to them. Xiangnan casually replied. But the more evasive he appeared, the more it fueled everyone's curiosity. Franklin was also glancing over. As a troop member well familiar with mafia dealings, he had a clear sense of the underworld structure. Yet Xiangnan's ability to orchestrate such large-scale support left Franklin only one association in mind, the 10 Dons. Although the troop's recent fiasco might reach the Dons' ears, it likely wouldn't concern them too much. The entire underworld was gargantuan, and the troop had, At most, just wiped out a handful of local heads in one city, not something that'd shake the underworld on a deep level. Always mindful of not picking an unwinnable fight, the spiders recognized the pecking order they were still climbing. If the troop were in full force, at some point soon, they might well spin a web for the 10 Dons. But not yet. Not that they lacked the strength, they just had to keep Meteor City stable first. Suddenly. Snap. While the remaining 2 players finally relaxed, Franklin lifted his arms again. The muzzle-like fingertips locked onto Xiangnan's temple. Don't bother. I could have refused to help. Those spoils, if I wanted to, you wouldn't bring 1 coin to Meteor City. And after all, a job's a job. I can separate it from anything else. If I wanted to screw you over, I'd already have done so, Xiangnan said calmly, eyes still shut. Hearing that, Franklin lowered his arms and spoke nothing further. Indeed, if Xiangnan had wanted to betray them, there had been too many opportunities. Though a job is a job. Your phantom troop owes me a favor now. Xiangnan abruptly opened his eyes, locking on to Franklin. A favor? Don't kid yourself. Franklin's face was expressionless. He didn't fully realize Xiangnan's behind-the-scenes manipulations that had exacerbated the crisis, but from all that had happened, if not for Xiangnan's arrangement, they wouldn't have escaped easily. Nonetheless, in the troops' mindset, favors simply didn't exist. You'll understand. Xiangnan gave a faint smile. At dawn, the helicopter landed at an airport in another city on the European continent. As soon as they disembarked, one could see a lavish airship parked not far away. Most notable was the insignia on that airship, representing a certain nation. The Republic of Padakia. Chapter 98, Let Krallo Wait for Me. A detachment of the Republic of Padakia's elite army was stationed aboard the airship. That was a whole different concept from the Mafia. No matter how powerful the 10 Dons were, they were still the emperors of the underworld. But the Republic of Padakia was a genuine country. Plus, news of the Republic of Padakia's recent establishment of diplomatic relations with the Kakin Empire had only just emerged not long ago. For the troop, maybe they could ignore the 10 Dons' authority, but they could not provoke a true national-level military strength. This was also the perpetual nightmare looming over Meteor City. Unless it were some exceptionally weak small country, but Meteor City served as the world's dumping ground for garbage. Countries from around the world would often dispatch waste ships to drop huge amounts of industrial waste, toxic materials, hazardous contagions, and all sorts of pollutants onto Meteor City's surface. And Meteor City dared not resist. They simply did not have the qualifications to resist. Any moderately strong country could wipe Meteor City off the map. This was no joke. In the eyes of the official world, the people of Meteor City were sewer rats. Nobody cared about their lives. Those nations possessed formidable firearms and technology. They only needed to dispatch wave after wave of aerial bombers for indiscriminate strikes, and Meteor City's human communities could be completely obliterated. After all, no one cared about their fates. Such a level of warfare was beyond the scope of what mere individuals could intervene in. So far, no country has bothered to regard Meteor City as a threat. For them, that place was too worthless to devote the resources. Besides small scattered mafia factions that occasionally cooperated with Meteor City, because the city provided them with fresh blood, basically nobody cared to lend it a hand. If it was worth destroying, a country's top brass could do so at any moment with a single order. Thus, when Franklin observed the soldiers on board the airship saluting Xiangnan, he immediately understood what Xiangnan meant by the Phantom Troop owes me a favor. A forced favor. The Phantom Troop had to owe it. Because this man possessed the power to decide Meteor City's fate. Once this ransom is delivered to Meteor City, I'd guess the rest of the troop will be waiting for us there. You Phantom Troop guys aren't planning to pay us a single dime to hire us, so we won't receive any compensation at all. According to your plan, once the job's done, you'd kill us. But you never expected that the ones taking the job were from the so-called nameless town. Inside the airship cabin, Xiangnan lit a cigarette, gazing out at the clouded skyline. Sitting opposite him was Franklin. As for the other 3 players, Xiangnan had them go elsewhere. He spoke straightforwardly. Franklin remained silent. Realizing Xiangnan's status was extremely lofty, he had to be cautious in his words and actions. Because trying to toy with an influential figure was foolish. If the other party became displeased, the consequences would be grim. The only part Franklin couldn't quite grasp was why someone like Xiangnan had actually accepted their job. So, who is it that's waiting for us in Meteor City? Krallo? Xiangnan gave a slight smile. It seems you have quite the misconception about us. Franklin lifted his gaze, expression composed, still wanting to cover things up. Oh? Xiangnan raised his eyebrows. I hold all the data and intel on your Phantom Troop. You think my conclusion is incorrect? Franklin had no retort. "So, what are you trying to do?" he questioned. At this point, events had escalated beyond the troops' capacity to deal with them in the usual manner. The nature of the situation had changed. Certainly, the ransom would be delivered safely to Meteor City. But why Xiangnan, with such a high position, had posed as an underground security detail, and why he knew so much about the Phantom Troop, led Franklin to suspect the troop was being targeted. Yet from the troops' perspective, they had never threatened the Republic of Padakia's interests. They understood angering a major power was different from harassing the Mafia. One spelled destruction, the other was just an opportunity to grow. Meteor City's elders, including your group's appearance, is actually a stroke of luck for Meteor City. Its environment naturally fosters a survival of the fittest approach, forging strong bodies as well as strong minds. Xiangnan paid no heed to the question, inhaling a mouthful of smoke as he spoke calmly. In Meteor City, the scheming and strife was assuredly no less intense than the Mafia's. Probably even more brutal. Those elders each had their own factions. Though they all lived in the same place, the savage environment and customs meant they'd never unite wholeheartedly. Meteor City's baseline was darkness, difficult to change. But the Phantom Troop's deeds, or at least the direction Krallo wanted, was in some ways grand. The troop wouldn't try to reform the city, they'd adapt and use it. Over these years, the frequency and scope of cooperation between Meteor City and the Mafia had increased. From the start, the elders just infiltrated smaller families, gradually broadening the network and earning the bigger families' regard. On one hand, it let them get outside resources, while on the other, Meteor City used stealthy means to expand its own influence. No one wanted to spend an entire lifetime in squalor, hidden in a stench-ridden sewer. That was just human nature. But systematically going out the normal ways was impossible. Like rats, they simply couldn't show themselves in the open. The Phantom Troop, with its destructive nature, gave Meteor City an alternative path. Although they currently couldn't challenge the Tendons, eventually, the Tendons would notice Meteor City's maneuvers. So it was only a matter of time before the troop and the Tendons clashed. Hence, one day, the Tendons would be eliminated. The underworld had been stagnant for too long. If Meteor City wanted to rely on that underworld soil to nourish itself, to break free of adversity, then it had to break the Tendons' dominion. That might explain the storyline at Yuknu's auction in the original series. Perhaps it wasn't purely for the money or the destructive spree. Of course, that was only Xiangnan's speculation as a transmigrator, combining the info he had. He wasn't absolutely sure if it was Krallo's plan. At the very least, regarding other troop members like Franklin, they didn't seem to hold such grand ambitions. They merely indulged themselves, committing wrongdoing for the sake of freedom and desire. They targeted the Mafia probably also because they held a grudge from their childhood friend Saras's tragedy. That was the shadow on which the original troop members formed. My aim has already been stated, you owe me a favor. Xiangnan exhaled a puff of smoke, meeting Franklin's gaze. A favor the troop must owe. Right from the start, Xiangnan had planned it. He intended simply to use his identity openly to expedite the mission and avoid the troop's plan to kill them afterwards. He'd never intended to unlock a story arc with the troop because they were too unpredictable, unlike the Kakin Empire. That didn't mean they lacked value to him, though. Based on the intelligence gleaned from that other Kanganash horror player about the reincarnation dimension, it was plausible that before long, the Phantom Troop could come in handy. Xiangnan's authority was only a kind of deterrent, not truly enough to rein them in. The troop, after all, might not fear Meteor City's destruction if they decided to hide in the shadows. But so long as Meteor City could avoid annihilation, it was best. Deterrence alone was enough for this mission. Favor was merely a reason. In the eyes of an actually powerful nation, Meteor City, the troop, is far too insignificant. Not any real threat. But I appreciate you all, and I'm willing to give you a chance. Tell Krallo to wait for me in Meteor City, he said to Franklin. Then Xiangnan snuffed out his cigarette, stood up, and left. Franklin sat alone for a while. After pondering briefly, he pulled out his phone. Chapter 99, Meeting the Phantom Troop and its leader. Krallo Xiangnan did not hurry to head directly to Meteor City. Instead, he gave the Phantom Troop plenty of time to prepare and respond. By the time the airship landed in a certain area of Meteor City, it was already a week later. Under the blazing sun, the air felt stuffy and scorching. On a barren stretch of rocky desert, 5 Phantom Troop members, led by Krallo, were gazing up at the approaching, official airship from the Republic of Padakia. They had already received Franklin's message. This time, the operation planned by Schlenrich had unexpectedly attracted a true big shot. Wearing a neatly styled suit-like haircut, hands in pockets, and a pair of blue earrings, Krallo calmly watched that colossal flying machine overhead. His eyes showed not a ripple of emotion. The roar of the airship's descent, together with the gusting wind from its rotors, seemed to bring an air of unknown possibility to this place spurned by humanity. Meteor City. And no one knew whether it would be good or bad. The large gusts of wind stirred up the dust of the desert around them, lifting the hem of Krallo's black coat. On the back of his coat was an inverted cross design. Aside from him, at his side were Nobunaga, the Kanoda, and Fitten. Originally, the ones who were supposed to receive the cargo were the duo of Yuvojin and Nobunaga. But upon hearing the news, Krallo had arrived at the last minute with the Kanoda and Fitten. Quite the show of force. A real national military. Nobunaga, with his long hair down, commented impassively. A bunch of soldiers. Maybe we can just kill them even here. Yuvojin wore a savage grin. Just these troops from one airship alone. Based on their confidence, the few of them could handle that easily. Victory was in hand. As for Krallo, he made no response to Yuvojin and Nobunaga's remarks. His deep, still eyes remained fixed on the airship descending in the distance, as if observing. Or contemplating. Something. Before long, the raging noise subsided. After the airship cut its engines, the cabins opened. Large numbers of soldiers stepped out in an orderly formation. The Phantom Troop's 5 members, unmoved, did not show any sign of intimidation. Even Yuvojin, with that messy, spiky hair, bared his teeth in a grin and began cracking his knuckles with an apparent itch for a fight. A short while later, 2 figures finally emerged from the craft store. One was Xiongnan, the other Franklin. Xiongnan at the front, Franklin behind him. As soon as Xiongnan appeared, his gaze met Krallo's. So young. Xiongnan's first thought. Although Krallo looked exceptionally calm, reserved, and impossible to read, in terms of appearance, he was indeed quite handsome. Like a noble young gentleman. But Xiongnan understood that as the troop's brain and decision-maker, the depths of his mind were incredibly formidable, not to be underestimated. Xiongnan curved his lips slightly into a smile, descending the ladder. Across from him, Krallo similarly began walking, bringing the other 4 along. One could see both sides gradually closing distance. Xiongnan was also quietly sizing up the others. While they, likewise, were appraising him. Looks like he's nothing special. Yuvojin narrowed his eyes with a vicious glint. If he dared to come after them, he'd better be prepared to die. I heard from Schulnrich that he clashed with Maki and beat her. Nobunaga, in a casual kimono, scratched at his ear, muttering, he isn't weak. Though his manner was lax, there was clear wariness in his eyes. Focus. Don't act rashly. Krallo glanced at them and spoke in an indifferent tone. He was warning Yuvojin and Nobunaga. They arrived face to face near the airship, separated by only a couple of meters. Franklin said nothing, merely slipped past Xiongnan to stand at his companion's side. Meanwhile, a row of soldiers began moving over some cargo. Crates of ransom and valuables. They placed them on the ground. The famous Phantom Troop. I finally get to see you all today. Standing opposite Krallo, Xiongnan offered a smile. You wanted to see me, presumably not just for a closer look at my face, right? Krallo returned the smile lightly. As the head of security, your mission this time is complete. Let's hear your evaluation. Xiongnan raised a brow. Excellent job, but I don't plan to pay a dime. Krallo replied. No problem. Consider it my good deed, a free favor. Then. Farewell. Hearing this, Krallo turned to leave. Though, putting the mission aside, speaking as a representative of the Republic of Patakia. There's something I'd like to discuss with you. Xiongnan voice came. Not interested. Krallo kept walking, not stopping as he coldly tossed back those 2 words. Really now? That's too bad. I intended to save the troop, but I guess I was being too sentimental. Xiongnan shrugged. At those words, Krallo halted mid-step. Finally, he looked back. You're threatening us? No. Standing on the airship's steps, Xiongnan gazed down with composure. Threaten? In my eyes, you're just a group of thieves. Maybe you have some skills, but nowhere near enough to earn my respect. Next to me, you're basically like insects scurrying by the roadside. As soon as Xiongnan finished speaking, Yuvojin's aura flared in alarming intensity. He stepped forward, looking prepared to leap right over and tear Xiongnan head off. But Krallo, quick-eyed and alert, instantly thrust out his arm, blocking Yuvojin. Don't move. He gave a cautioning glare to Yuvojin. I'll kill him. Yuvojin roared, bloodlust surging. Krallo offered no verbal response, simply meeting Yuvojin's eyes with his own calm gaze. After a tense few seconds, Yuvojin reluctantly clenched his fists and spat on the ground. Far away, Xiongnan stood unruffled on the stepladder, adjusting his spectacles. I'm willing to waste my time on small-time folks like you. It's already quite a rare mercy. But evidently it didn't turn your gratitude. Krallo cast another glance at Xiongnan, unprovoked by the remarks. What do you want to talk about? Given your big talk, it implies you might not be as powerful as you look, does it not? Otherwise, why would you come looking for us? You're right. Xiong Nan acknowledged freely. So interested now? Krallo lowered his eyes, let out a faint smile, and strode toward the airship. The others followed. I only invited him aboard. As for the rest of you, you're not included in the invitation. Xiong Nan reminded calmly when he saw Nobunaga and the others coming along. You guys wait here, Krallo said to his companions, wearing a smile. But Kanoda hesitated. Relax, I won't be in trouble. Krallo responded serenely. Then, under their watchful gazes, he followed the trenchcoat-clad man up the steps and disappeared into the airship. Chapter 100, Secretive Talks. Outside the ship, Kanoda and the others waited anxiously. Although Krallo had indicated there would be no problem, they still felt worried. After all, from Franklin's brief account just now, they could basically tell that this guy named 17 was extremely dangerous. Not only was he a high-ranking figure in the Republic of Padakia, but he also had connections to the 10 Dons of the underworld. His influence was sky-high. And his known ability was rather eerie. To be able to defeat Maki meant he could definitely pose a threat to Krallo. Plus, from the very beginning of this mission, he had seemed to see right through their plan, and also knew they had no intention of paying any compensation. Ugh, let's just barge in. After a while, Nobunaga frowned, staring at the closed hatch. With their strength, this Republic of Padakia army was nothing more than a formality. Krallo told us not to act rashly without his order, the short, stocky Fit reminded. TCH. Nobunaga clicked his tongue in irritation. Just then, the hatch finally opened. Krallo walked out with a calm face. Alone. How'd it go? The blonde Kanoda stepped forward, asking. Nothing. We just got acquainted, Krallo replied with a faint smile. Got acquainted? The others glanced at one another, confused by Krallo's remark. Behind him, the airship slowly lifted off. Krallo turned his head to watch this piece of Republic of Padakia military technology, his gaze deep and pensive. No one knew what he was thinking. What the hell? Just what's he up to? What did you two talk about? Yuvojin, straightforward as ever, demanded. Don't mind it, let's go, but Krallo clearly didn't intend to say more. TCH. Yuvojin let out a scornful sound. Then the group, carrying their hull from the robbery, left the barren plains. On board the ship, Xiong Nan sat by the window, watching the figures of Krallo's group shrink into dots on the ground below. One hand propping his chin, he wore an amused expression. Not bad, he murmured. As though praising Krallo, or praising the Phantom Troop. Seeing these desperate criminals in person did indeed match his impressions. In fact, Xiong Nan hadn't really shown his genuine contempt for the Phantom Troop. He had spoken truthfully. Before a national war machine, the troop and Meteor City might be trivial worms. But that didn't mean the troop had no means of resistance. He recalled just now how Yuvojin erupted with that aura of Nan. The volume of aura in Xiong Nan's eyes was somewhat unbelievable. Even for an enhancement-type user, how strong must his body be to develop so much aura? It simply didn't seem human. That overwhelming physicality and terrifying reservoir of Nan. With just Yuvojin at that level, characters like Zeno or Silva Zoltik, let alone beyond Nitero and Isaac Nitero, would be even more unimaginable. Boss. Thank you. In the hall, 4 other players, led by Dylan, approached. Dylan's injuries had somewhat stabilized, allowing him to move freely. No need for thanks. Once we're out of Meteor City, I'll find a place to drop you off, Xiong Nan responded without turning his head. They had received notification from the system not long ago, they all passed the mission. Xiong Nan's level rose to Extinction 5, while the others were now Extinction 4. Boss. Can I come with you? Dylan suddenly asked, looking hopeful. They already knew this man in front of them, Xiong Nan, was no ordinary figure. Likely a top official of the Republic of Padakia. They didn't understand how he'd accomplished it, but one thing was clear, as players, if they followed Xiong Nan around, the resources and hidden support available to them would be enormous. This was an opportunity. Sorry, I'm not planning to form a team right now. Xiong Nan declined. That's fine. Dylan's eyes, inevitably, flashed disappointment. Indeed. A man of his level wouldn't be interested in us. After expressing their gratitude, the 4 excused themselves, not wanting to disturb Xiong Nan further. The difference in both status and strength, like a massive gulf, separated them into 2 different worlds. Xiong Nan had refused them because their potential was too poor. They simply couldn't be trained the way someone like Manman could. Moreover, there was that fundamental issue, as players, their free will carried unpredictable variables. Xiong Nan would rather have people under him who were more stable, instead of chasing a superficial notion of power. His energy was limited. He exhaled slightly and pulled out his phone, calling Menman. Everything's done on my end. How are things on yours? Once connected, Xiangnan asked. It's still going. But 3 members have died. Menman, though, sounded quite happy at getting a call from him, her tone rather cheerful. Need me to come help? No need. I think I can handle it. She declined. Xiangnan could tell the girl didn't want to trouble him, so there was no need to rush over. They chatted briefly, then he ended the call. He also called the leader of the Zatabi family, Mia, as well as the Republic of Padakia's military. I'm looking for a person named Amokaj. He is from Meteor City, once part of the Phantom Troop, but was later replaced by someone else. An user, and he has a younger sister. He looks like this, and his ability is. Xiangnan gave orders. Now that he'd had a face-to-face with the troop, he'd confirmed their formidableness. Having only fought Maki, he could already sense how scary the Phantom Troop was overall. And so, he wanted to track down the original troop member Amokaj, who presumably still lived. Although that person was equally unpredictable, Xiangnan believed that, alone, he had enough confidence to bring him under control. If he could be found. As for Meteor City, Xiangnan would return again later. Because, according to his plan, this place was an indispensable piece. The Phantom Troop. Was only the beginning. Though next time, he'd likely aim to meet with the few elders of Meteor City. Meanwhile, a few Phantom Troop members had returned to a certain church building in Meteor City. Krallo stood alone outside the church, gazing at the sky. His mind still echoing Xiangnan's words from aboard the vessel, let time prove everything. If it's true. I'm looking forward to it. Krallo murmured to himself. Chapter 101. Former Phantom Troop member Xiangnan returned to the Kotaki City garrison, focusing on his nin training. His battle against Maki made him realize 2 issues. 1. His nin techniques still weren't refined enough. Though he had been working very hard to research and hone them, it was ultimately just feeling his way in the dark. Maki's thread control was incredible. She used the Hatsu technique together with hiding, further leveraging combat skills plus the number of threads to distract the opponent's vision, making her very formidable. Even with the system talent that boosts his comprehension, it still had its limits. Right now, my foundation in basic nin training is stable enough, but I'm still fumbling with advanced techniques. It's obvious my growth rate has slowed down, and if I want to get stronger in a short time, the best way is to find a mentor. Sitting in his office, Xiangnan emerged from his meditation. After all, the reason he beat Maki was because he was overly familiar with the Phantom Troop's battle prowess from the original storyline and took precautions in advance, whereas Maki knew nothing about his nin abilities. That said, Maki was indeed careless. Strictly speaking, Xiangnan felt that in terms of pure nin technical skill, he still lagged behind most Phantom Troop fighters. Indeed, while his own combat experience and battlefield analysis weren't weak, his grasp of advanced nin techniques wasn't skillful enough to instantly read a fight and gather authentic combat details. 2. Really, the best fix for that is to find a teacher. Who, though? Xiangnan pondered. All along, his own nin cultivation had followed the Shinjinri path. In the original, the narrative depicting specific training and guidance mostly centered around the main cast. Details about other power systems and training routes were quite limited. Despite his continued study of experimental subjects, his progress still didn't satisfy him. Biscuit. Xiangnan recalled a name. Since his baseline method was Shinjinryu, the best bet would be to follow that lineage. This old witch who loved polishing raw gems was indeed a top-notch developer of students. However, getting her to accept a student still had a high threshold. Otherwise, there's the Zoltik family or Nitaro. Xiangnan deliberated further. The Zoltiks. So long as you had money, that's all you needed. Almost no other requirement. But the fees might be astronomical. Although he occupied a high rank in the Republic of Padakia's military, earlier attempts by the government to hire Zeno Zoltik for non-user training had found the costs simply unaffordable. Let alone Xiangnan paying from his own pocket. Indeed, beyond just paying fees, the length of time was no small matter. Meanwhile, as for Chairman Nitaro of the Hunter Association, that looked like the best teacher. But whether or not the old man would teach him was anyone's guess. Plus, Xiangnan's own identity was rather sensitive. Now I'm at Extinction 5. Once I reach Extinction 6, the system's protective effect will vanish completely. Meaning I've officially exited my newbie phase. At that point, I can make normal contact with story characters. Among humans in this world, top-tier nin masters are only so many. Just a handful. Xiangnan mused inwardly. The Zoltiks won't work out, that leaves Nitaro or Biscuit. As for beyond Nitaro, better to forget it. If he wanted to learn from Nitaro, he wouldn't necessarily need to be a formal student, As long as he got the old man's interest, that'd be enough. The old man was presumably quite willing to cultivate promising juniors. Condition is, Xiongnan had to join the Hunter Association, then show a certain degree of potential. Xiongnan glanced at the calendar. Last year's Hunter exam had ended. If he wanted to become a Hunter, the next exam would be held at year-end, precisely the time the main storyline was about to start. There were 8 months left. So I'll get to meet the main cast, huh? Xiongnan let out a soft laugh. He wasn't really looking to involve himself in the plot, but due to his own bottleneck, seeking out the Hunter Association seemed the best move. Honestly, he didn't have that much interest in Gon and Killua. Yes, they're this world's protagonists, but their current ability and level were still far from genuinely fearsome characters, only their potential was monstrous. First, I'll spend some money to collect gemstones, as a bribe for her. Xiongnan rose from his seat and left. In order to reach the realm of true masters, he'd never let any opportunity slip. Biscuit or neat taro. He'd try both. Next, Xiongnan traveled around the world for a while, collecting gems that might meet Biscuit's standards, preparing to join the Hunter Association. It was also a chance for some leisurely sightseeing. Meanwhile, Mangman finally contacted him, announcing she'd passed Extinction 5. It had taken quite a while. Nearly a month from mission start to completion, presumably quite an ordeal. She said that in the end, only she and one other person survived. Such a high mortality rate was terrifying. Once again, a storyline-related mission had ended, and the rest of the world saw some new events worth paying attention to. Xiongnan compiled some data. Meanwhile, the system interface showed that after this round, the number of players worldwide had exceeded 400, even more than before. Mangman originally wanted to meet with Xiongnan, but Xiongnan received word and changed plans, heading for the Mimbo Republic, a member of the V5. The tasks he had sent out earlier finally yielded a lead. The Republic of Patakia's military discovered that in a certain small country bordering the Mimbo Republic, there was a high chance a Mokaj was in hiding. A girl strongly resembling Xiongnan description of a Mokaj's sister, Retz, was doing puppet shows on the street. So Xiongnan intended to go check it out. According to the intel, after a Mokaj was removed from the Phantom Troop, he'd been clandestinely roaming about, searching for worthy prey to craft into puppets. He also had an obsession with collecting eyeballs, believing the eyes to be the puppet's soul. Hence, neither he nor his sister would stay long in any location. As for Hisoka, he killed a Mokaj only once, but it turned out to have been a puppet. Out of bad intentions, he never told the troop. The exact circumstances are unknown, but apparently, a Mokaj was also on Hisoka's to-be-ripened apple list. The troop presumably didn't know a Mokaj was still alive. Otherwise, by the troop's rules, a Mokaj must be killed for him to be replaced. A specialist Nen user. Xiongnan recalled a Mokaj as Nen and smirked. That ability was fairly good. Worth him suspending his trip and going out of his way. But, given that the system's protective effect remained in place, he'd have to borrow a bit of manpower. Chapter 102, Helper. Never thought you'd come looking for my help. 3 days later, in the capital of the small country where a Mokaj might be hiding. Inside a cafe, Xiongnan and a certain storyline character sat face to face. That person was controlling a puppet with a lifeless expression, whose mouth opened and closed mechanically. Just like the person himself. Indeed, as Xiongnan had anticipated, it was Illumai Zoltik. He didn't want others to know about his search for a Mokaj, and as a professional assassin, Illumai was naturally bound to absolute secrecy about his client's identity. This was out of Xiongnan trust in the Zoltik family's resounding name. Originally, Xiongnan had planned to borrow some manpower from Kakin. Kakin Empire, being a powerful military nation, definitely had many non-users in an army-type arrangement. However, with the sort of cooperative relationship Xiongnan presently maintained with Nasabai Huigor, if the latter found a chance to accuse Xiongnan of something, Xiongnan had no doubt the Kakin king would instantly stab him in the back. Therefore, he had to find external help. Besides, a Mokaj was once a Phantom Troop member, Xiongnan himself couldn't handle him directly, nor could he be sure of preventing the man from escaping. He needed someone who could guarantee success. After some careful thought. In order to get things done fast, Xiongnan spent money to hire a member of the Zoltik family. Careful with your wording. I'm your employer. You're working for me. Don't call it helping me out. Although Xiongnan couldn't see Illumai's expression, the puppet's wooden tone and manner of speech let Xiongnan picture Illumai's attitude. Are you worried I'll continue pursuing you? Relax. Your earlier assessment was correct. Those mafia families paid too little, and their requirements were low, so that job's time limit ended a while ago. Xiongnan massaged his temples. Were it not for the system's protective block preventing him from taking action personally, he truly wouldn't want to deal with such a troublesome guy. Didn't your family ever tell you that you have an awful personality which makes people dislike you? Taking a sip of juice, Xiangnan spoke unreservedly in return. Nope. Everyone in our family gets along very well. Ugh, spare me. The only reason I found you is because, among the Zoltic family, you offer the best cost performance. To put it bluntly, you're the cheapest option. Xiangnan's tone was sincere. Hiring Silva or Zeno would cost a fortune and wasn't worthwhile.